Right now, as you sit and watch this, your metabolism is slowing down, not gradually over months or years. Right now. This tracks the shift inside your bloodstream. With every hour of sitting, the fat-breaking enzyme drops 90. A single walk reshapes the hormonal signals governing your hunger, your energy levels, and even the quality of your sleep. In 1953, British epidemiologist Jerry Morris published a landmark study comparing the health of two distinct groups of London transit workers to see how daily movement affected long-term survival. He tracked the city's bus drivers, who sat stationary behind the steering wheel for their entire shifts. Then he tracked the bus conductors, who spent their hours walking up and down the double-decker aisles collecting tickets. The walking conductors had half the rate of coronary heart disease compared to the seated drivers. While researchers initially attributed this to cardiovascular fitness, later analysis suggested that the protection actually came from a deeper metabolic mechanism triggered by constant, low-level movement. Metabolism is the body's total operating system, the sum of every chemical reaction keeping you alive, from building bone to manufacturing hormones. Caloric burn is simply the most visible corner of this much larger picture. This system is powered by adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. Every single cell in your body runs on this molecule. When your heart beats, or when you think a thought, a molecule of ATP ignites to fuel the action. When you sit still for extended periods, your body requires very little ATP. To maintain efficiency, your mitochondria, the microscopic power plants inside your cells, shift into their lowest gear. Imagine a factory where the assembly lines have stopped, but the raw materials keep arriving at the loading dock. With the mitochondria inactive, the glucose in your blood has nowhere to go. It begins stacking up, clogging cellular pathways and blocking exits. Standing up and walking forces the mitochondria to reactivate. This clears the glucose backlog as the cells resume high-volume energy production. Walking provides the mechanical input required to keep the cellular factory running. This prevents the stagnant and eventually toxic buildup of unused metabolic materials. When this stagnation occurs across an entire population, the consequences are severe. A 2016 analysis in The Lancet quantified the global impact of metabolic silence. This bar chart measures the human cost, showing that physical inactivity contributes to more than 5 million deaths worldwide every year. This figure rivals the global mortality rate of smoking. Prolonged sitting quietly dismantles the metabolic foundation that protects against chronic conditions like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This timeline illustrates the active couch potato effect. Researchers have found that a single hour of intense morning exercise cannot fully erase the metabolic damage caused by sitting for the remaining 15 hours of the day. A 30-minute walk triggers biological switches deep inside your muscle cells that remain active long after your last step. This activity activates specific enzymes that no food or supplement can reach. It alters the chemical communication network between your muscles, your liver, your fat tissue, and your brain. 30 minutes of daily walking maintains the human body's entire metabolic operating system, providing the specific mechanical input required to keep your cellular machinery from falling into silence. Before you move, your body rests in a state of quiet equilibrium. Your skeletal muscles account for roughly 40% of your total body weight, sit dormant, requiring very little energy to maintain themselves. The moment you take your first step, a silent signal hits those muscles. At the cellular level, the message is unmistakable. Your legs need energy right now. This animated diagram maps the immediate cardiovascular response. Within the first 60 seconds of walking, blood flow to your legs increases by as much as 5 times its resting rate. Your heart rate rises from about 70 beats per minute to 90 or 100, redirecting blood away from your digestive organs and surging it toward the working muscles. Deep inside your muscle fibers, oxygen delivery spikes. The mitochondria, the energy centers of your cells that had been idling in low gear, receive a strict command to begin producing ATP, the primary molecule that fuels cellular function. Beginning a walk creates an immediate, non-negotiable demand for cellular energy. To produce that ATP, your mitochondria look for the easiest fuel available. In the first few minutes of a walk, they pull from stored glucose, known as glycogen, which is packed tightly inside your muscle cells like emergency rations in a bunker. This diagram outlines exactly where your body keeps these reserves. You store roughly 300 to 400 grams of glycogen directly in your muscles and 80 to 100 grams in your liver. When combined, you have approximately 1,600 to 2,000 calories of quick-access energy waiting to be burned. Because walking is a moderate, sustainable effort, your muscles do not burn through these emergency rations recklessly. Within 5 to 7 minutes, your body preserves its remaining sugar and makes a metabolic pivot, shifting its fuel preference over to stored fat. By the 10-minute mark of walking at a moderate pace, about 3 to 4 miles per hour, cellular ATP levels drop slightly. This minor dip is detected by a sensor inside your cells. That sensor is an enzyme called AMP-activated protein kinase, or AMPK. This enzyme detects the slightest drop in ATP and activates fat-burning pathways, similar to a technician switching on backup generators during a power shortage. As shown in this diagram of beta oxidation, the activated AMPK signals your fat cells to release stored fatty acids. These particles travel through your bloodstream, enter the muscle cells, and feed directly into the mitochondria. During a 30-minute walk, this specific process can account for up to 60% of your total energy production. The simple mechanical act of walking dissolves stored body fat to fuel your forward momentum. AMPK performs a second function on the outer membrane of a single muscle cell in your quadriceps. The surface of that cell contains protein gateways called GLUT4. Normally, these gateways sit hidden in small compartments inside the cell, doing nothing until the hormone insulin tells them to rise to the surface and let glucose in. When AMPK fires up, it forces those gateways to the surface and opens them, bypassing insulin. Glucose floods into the muscle. Thus, a walk after a meal drops blood sugar by 15 to 20% within 30 minutes. This insulin-free bypass offers a zero-cost method for direct blood sugar regulation. Zooming out to minute 15, your metabolism looks different than it did when you were sitting down. Your local cellular mitochondria are now producing ATP at a rate 10 to 15 times higher than at rest. Your endocrine system joins the process. Your adrenal glands begin releasing a mild, sustained dose of adrenaline and noradrenaline. This gentle hormonal surge tells your liver to release a small amount of stored glycogen to keep your blood sugar stable, signals your fat tissue to continue liberating fatty acids, and increases blood flow to the prefrontal cortex to sharpen your mental focus. Concurrently, your contracting muscles produce a molecule called interleukin-6, or IL-6. While elevated IL-6 is often a marker of harmful inflammation in chronic disease, it plays a specific beneficial role during exercise. When released by working muscles, IL-6 acts as a chemical text message. It travels from your legs to your liver and fat tissue, instructing them to increase fat metabolism and improve insulin sensitivity. By the end of your 30-minute walk, your body has evolved into a humming, fuel-burning machine, drawing energy from fat stores and broadcasting chemical signals across multiple organ systems. Every biological process we just observed, the blood flow, the fat oxidation, the sugar clearance, occurs while your legs are moving. And while the physical movement has finally stopped, the metabolic shifts that improve insulin sensitivity and systemic health continue to develop in the hours and days after the walk ends. You stop walking, you sit down, drink some water, and carry on with your day. From the outside, it looks like the metabolic event is over, but inside your body, the machinery is still running. Within minutes of finishing your walk, your muscles enter a phase of active recovery. The mitochondria that were churning out ATP, the primary energy currency of your cells, do not simply shut off like a light switch. They continue operating at an elevated rate. This chart visualizes excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, or EPOC. It shows a multi-hour window post-walk where your body burns up to 50 additional calories from fat, the metabolic afterburn. 50 calories sounds small, but walking 30 minutes every day makes that afterburn accumulate quietly. Over 30 days, that steady repetition stacks into a meaningful metabolic contribution, remodeling your internal machinery from the ground up. Let us fast forward to day 14 of this daily routine. We need to look strictly at the interior of your muscle cells. After 2 weeks of consistent movement, your muscles begin building new mitochondria. In exercise science, this process is called mitochondrial biogenesis. Building more mitochondria means bringing more ATP factories online. With more factories in operation, your muscles gain a greater capacity to burn fat. This structural upgrade to your metabolic hardware persists as long as you remain consistent, allowing your muscles to use fat for energy around the clock, even when you are sitting at your desk or fast asleep. At the 30-day mark, the changes shift out of the muscle cells and into the bloodstream. This dual-axis graph reveals a significant shift in insulin sensitivity. Individuals experience up to a 25% drop in insulin required to clear glucose. This drop relies on GLUT4 transporters cycling to the cell surface faster, pulling sugar directly out of the bloodstream. For the roughly 500 million people worldwide living with type 2 diabetes, and the hundreds of millions more in the pre-diabetic range, making cells hungrier for sugar is a critical metabolic defense. 30 days of consistent walking reduces the workload on the pancreas by turning cells into highly efficient, autonomous glucose sinks. From the bloodstream, the physical effects of mechanical leg movement travel upward into the brain's neural network. Your bloodstream begins carrying measurable increases of a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. This acts like a fertilizer for the brain, promoting the growth of new neurons, strengthening existing connections, and protecting brain cells. This diverging bar chart tracks the volume of the hippocampus. After age 40, it typically shrinks by 1 to 2% every year, but walking reversed the standard decline, replacing the expected volume loss with a measured gain. Moving downward to the digestive tract, emerging research indicates that walking also alters the trillions of bacteria living in your intestines. Modest increases in physical activity measurably expand the diversity of your gut microbiome within a 6-week window, transforming the internal environment. A more diverse bacterial ecosystem is directly associated with improved digestion, better mood regulation, and a stronger systemic immune function. The daily mechanical act of walking alters biological environments far removed from the legs. It upgrades both physical cognition and internal flora. Walking outside, especially in the morning or early afternoon, exposes you to natural light and gently elevates your core body temperature. Both of these inputs help regulate your circadian rhythm. These biological signals tell your brain exactly when to produce melatonin later that evening. Regular moderate exercise improves overall sleep quality by a margin comparable to certain prescription sleep medications, with zero side effects or dependency. This ties directly back to your immune system. Chronic low-grade inflammation is a primary root driver behind blood vessel damage, impaired insulin signaling, and accelerated aging at the cellular level. This scatter plot tracks markers of systemic inflammation, like C-reactive protein, over a 30-day timeline. As daily exercise occurrences increase, the release of exercise-induced myokines gradually trains the immune system to become less reactive, creating a distinct downward trend in inflammation. Daily movement acts as a systemic pacifier. It cools down an overactive biological security system and restores your body's ability to respond proportionally to minor threats. Zooming out from the microscopic details, we can evaluate the macroscopic view of the human body after a full 30 days of consistent walking. This circular network diagram maps these optimized systems. They do not operate in isolation. Better sleep improves insulin sensitivity. Lower inflammation supports brain health. A healthier gut produces neurotransmitters that regulate mood. Each benefit positively feeds the others in a continuous, self-reinforcing chain reaction. Have you ever noticed that you think more clearly after a walk, that your anxiety fades, or that problems suddenly seem more manageable once you are moving? We would love to hear your experience. Let us know in the comments what physical, mental, or emotional shifts you have noticed from making walking a daily habit. But before you lace up your shoes and head out the door, there is a severe limitation you need to know. Despite these month-long structural shifts, most walking advice completely ignores one simple, crucial variable. This biological blueprint is fragile. Its ultimate success relies entirely on this single, unknown factor to determine whether your walk delivers its maximum metabolic benefit or leaves significant results on the table. After you finish a meal, the food you just digested floods your blood with glucose. When you choose to walk after that meal, dictates exactly how your body handles that sudden surge in sugar. This graph compares blood sugar responses from a 2022 meta-analysis. If seated, you get a sharp spike. Walking immediately softens it. But walking between 60 and 90 minutes after eating dramatically flattens the curve. During that specific 90-minute window, the movement of your leg muscles triggers two separate clearing mechanisms at once. You activate both the insulin-dependent pathway and the AMPK-driven pathway simultaneously. Think of these pathways as doors into your muscle tissue. Activating them signals a specific protein called the GLUT4 transporter to cycle to the surface of your cells. With two doors open instead of one, the GLUT4 transporters pull the glucose out of your blood and into your muscles at an accelerated rate. This 24-hour timeline from diabetes care compares a single 45-minute morning walk, which leaves a volatile, spiky line throughout the day, against 3 15-minute walks taken after meals. The 3 short walks create a tightly controlled line. The total walking time is exactly the same, but by matching the physical movement to the body's digestive cycle, the shorter walks prevent the sharp metabolic spikes that cause long-term cellular damage. Speed also alters the chemical response. For most adults, walking at 3 to 4 miles per hour places the body in an ideal metabolic zone. At this brisk but conversational pace, AMPK activation reaches its peak, and the body maximizes the amount of fat it oxidizes for fuel. Pushing past that pace into a heavy power walk or a jog forces the body to adapt. To sustain the higher intensity, your muscles shift their primary fuel source, relying more heavily on stored glycogen and less on circulating fat. You can manipulate this energy expenditure without running by changing your terrain. Walking up a neighborhood hill, taking the stairs, or using a treadmill incline increases the energy required by 20 to 30% compared to walking at the exact same speed on flat ground. An incline forces your glutes and hamstrings to engage. Because these are among the largest and most metabolically active tissues in the human body, recruiting them creates a larger cellular afterburn that lasts for hours after you stop moving. If you have been largely sedentary, the cardiovascular and musculoskeletal systems require time to adapt to this level of effort. Starting with 10 or 15-minute walks at an easy pace and building up gradually over 2 to 3 weeks is a safer approach than attempting 30 brisk minutes immediately. While increasing your pace and seeking out hills will maximize fat clearance, establishing a safe, gradual adaptation phase ensures the routine is sustainable day after day. In 1953, a researcher named Jerry Morris published a landmark public health study examining the transit workers on London's double-decker buses. The data showed that the conductors walking the aisles and climbing the stairs developed significantly less heart disease than the drivers sitting at the wheel. For decades, the medical community accepted an obvious conclusion. The conductors exercised more, which gave them stronger hearts and better cardiovascular endurance. Over the following years, new data emerged that challenged that assumption. Researchers found that people who walked at an unhurried pace, with heart rates that barely climbed above their resting baseline, still showed significant improvements in blood sugar control and lipid profiles. If the 1950s conclusion was perfectly accurate, those low-intensity strollers shouldn't have seen such massive health improvements. Their walking pace was simply too slow to build cardiovascular fitness or strengthen the heart muscle. Intrigued, a stronger heart could not explain the measurable chemical improvements happening in their blood. The benefit was coming from an unseen mechanism localized entirely within the muscle tissue itself. That mechanism is lipoprotein lipase, or LPL. It is an enzyme located on the inner walls of your blood vessels, specifically inside the capillaries that thread directly through your skeletal muscles. LPL functions as a fat-clearing engine. Its primary job is to grab triglycerides, a specific type of fat carried in your bloodstream, and pull them into the surrounding muscle tissue where they can be broken down and burned for energy. When LPL is inactive, it creates an immediate negative cascade. Without the enzyme actively clearing the bloodstream, triglycerides accumulate rapidly, causing fat levels in the blood to rise. Keeping LPL consistently active is the absolute biological requirement to prevent the buildup of fat in your blood and avoid long-term metabolic dysfunction. LPL is totally unaffected by how hard you breathe or how high your heart rate gets. It is regulated entirely by the localized mechanical action of your muscles physically contracting and releasing. This diagram shows the effect of remaining sedentary. When you sit for extended periods, the LPL activity in your leg muscles plummets to near zero within hours, allowing fat to quickly accumulate in the blood on the right. But the moment you stand up and begin to walk, even at a gentle, unhurried pace, the mechanical force of your muscles moving causes the LPL activity to immediately surge back to optimal levels. The 1953 bus conductors had excellent health profiles because their legs were in constant motion. Every step they took up the aisle provided the continuous mechanical force needed to keep their fat-clearing enzymes active, hour after hour. The current scientific framework points to a clear daily protocol. Walk for 30 minutes a day at a brisk, conversational pace. Seek out varied terrain and aim to schedule at least one walk to fall 60 to 90 minutes after your largest meal. Because the enzymes require consistent mechanical motion, it is vital to break up long periods of sitting. Just 2 to 5 minutes of light movement every hour is enough to restart the fat-clearing process. Over 2 million years of human evolution, our skeletons, our mitochondrial networks, and our enzymes were shaped entirely around this specific, continuous physical movement. A daily walk is the required mechanical trigger that wakes up those ancient pathways. It keeps your blood clean, your cells sensitive, and your metabolism fully functional.